Start recording now. Start recording now. Well, a foggy evening here in Melbourne for the start of this semi-final in the NFL big game here at the South Melbourne Football Ground, the quarterfinals it is. Umpires Brian Hedger with Brian Oakley. Queensland playing Port Melbourne. There we go with Cook up in the ruck. Cook goes up, gets it down to the ground for Port Melbourne, but immediately kicked up towards the half-forward line by Catalini of the Queensland side. This is Stibbard coming through in defence for Port Melbourne. Stibbard up towards their half-forward line, and the umpires paid a remark to Lindsay Moylan, the back pocket player of Queensland, coming right up the field. So Moylan now kicks the yellow ball up towards the half-forward line. Up they go for it, punch down, and it comes out here to Goss. This is Kevin Goss. Goss plays it around towards Christo of Port Melbourne, but players racing after the ball, no one able to get possession. There's Christo knocking it off the ground. Comes through in the direction of Rasmussen of Port Melbourne. There he is, gets grabbed as he tried to come out of the pack. Couldn't do so. Paul Goss is under them, and Goss is the player to get the free kick. Goss, the regular over with Port Melbourne. Queensland defeating the VFA, and Port Melbourne very anxious to do well tonight against them. Tapped down to the ground. Will the Queenslanders find these slippery conditions difficult for them? They're having a lot of trouble in handling the ball, but coming out with it now is Mick Brown of Queensland. He puts it in towards the centre, and Wallace of Queensland is the player to take the mark. Now Wallace from short of the centre plays it out wide, and Backwell moves in to take it wide of the centre of the ground. One player to watch tonight here is Frank Dunhill, who was one of the best players on the ground against the VFA side. Taking the mark then was Barry Beecroft of Port Melbourne in defence. He plays it towards Cook on the outer side of the ground. And Cook takes the mark, gets the hand pass in, gets it towards Pagan. He's being tackled by Bob Shepherd of Queensland. And Shepherd is the player to gain possession. Play it up towards the left forward pocket position. And coming in to take a good mark here is Greg Dermott of Port Melbourne. Greg Dermott from the right back pocket position for Port Melbourne. Plays it out towards that half-back line, and a good Queensland mark there. And that was taken by Bob Shepherd again of Queensland on that left half-forward flank. They'll take a little while, I reckon, Queensland to settle down. They're not used to these damp, slippery conditions. It's a high floating punt right up towards the goal square. Big men want it, knocked down to the ground. There's Goss, number 11, racing in after it, but it's gone over the line and out of bounds for a throw-in. Goss is of the Port Melbourne side. Queensland are in the white necks, if you're watching it in black and white. And there's Beckwith. No, that was the fellow Catalini getting the pass out of the pack. It ends up with Backwell, and Backwell racing in towards goal, puts it through for the first score, and it's 1 point after the first 3 minutes of play. Now the kick-off to be taken by Dermott once again. Dermott goes for the short pass, but gets it across to Peter Ivanoff of Port Melbourne. Ivanoff from the right back pocket around the bowling green wing. Players settle in under the ball, forced down to the ground, but in the meantime the umpires pick the free kick out of it to George Allen of Port Melbourne. Allen plays it across in towards the centre, and Cook is playing on the ball, goes for a wild hand pass, but it goes into the hands of Lowe. There's a pull around the neck anyway, and the umpire's recalling the ball. We're just deliberating there as to who that is, number 44, but it's been taken by Allen now, and Allen plays it up in the direction of the centre forward zone, and the big fellows that want it again comes out of the pack, comes down towards Rasmussen. He snap shoots for goal, and it's through for full points. And the Port Melbourne are 1 goal with Queensland 1 point. Port Melbourne handling the ball a lot better under these greasy, slippery conditions. And for the benefit of our audience over there in South Australia, there is light fog. It's not very heavy at all, although it is much heavier around some of the other suburbs of Melbourne tonight. We're a bit fortunate, although we're down right near Albert Park Lake. The player with number 44 out there is Kerr of Port Melbourne. All right, there the umpire blows the whistle, picks a free kick out of it for Cook, and Cook not wasting any time. He's very keen tonight. He was beaten in Queensland, playing at full forward. He sends it up towards the centre half forward zone, and Rasmussen again goes up in the pack, but there will be a free kick awarded in that last line of defence to the back pocket player Lindsay Moylan. Now Moylan of Queensland in towards the centre of the ground, and the umpires paid the mark to Rushbrook. or Kamali of Queensland towards the centre forward zone. A beautiful lead out for the ball then. And that looked as though it was Clark. Barry Clark of Queensland. He's a fair way out from goal, but they're kicking the ball well. He keeps it a bit low, however, and it goes straight into the middle of the pack. There is the opportunity for Cross to get away with it. A pick up this time by Catalini. Snap shooting for goal, and Catalini's put it through for full points to Queensland. So they move on to 1-1, and Port Melbourne 1 goal. Well, they did that well, Ted.
Well, they certainly did it well, and Catalini, you can see this player that missed out on the match against the VFA in Queensland 3 weeks ago. He's going to be a force here tonight, Phil. He's a very smart player, and that was a very good goal he just kicked.
OK, Don Hyde.
Thank you, Phil. And the Queensland side looking pretty good to me at the moment. They're a very skillful team, and the slippery surface doesn't seem to be affecting them adversely to this stage anyway. As the ball getting bounced in the centre again, a free kick will go Port Melbourne's way to be taken by Fred Cook. Cook gets a hand pass going, and it's a split decision. What's that mean, Ted?
A split decision. One umpire gave a free kick for a player running over the mark, and the other umpire gave a free kick for an infringement at the ruck.
Well, then which decision?
The one who gave the infringement at the ruck is the one that took precedence.
OK, the ball into the full forward zone, knocked away by Tony Hayden. It comes back towards Wallace. Wallace of Queensland, caught with the ball and holding the ball. Wallace was a very good player in the match against the VFA, and he could be, he's a former Victorian player, could do well here tonight. There's the ball kicked forward for Port Melbourne by Treasure, down towards the half-forward line, and it's George Allen. Allen, a very accomplished player on the Port Melbourne side, plays the ball, rather a high kick, not a good kick at all, towards Rasmussen. But in the meantime, Rasmussen will get the free kick for being pushed in the back, and he passes quickly down to Treasure. Treasure of Port Melbourne driving the ball into the full forward zone, offline as we see the Port Melbourne player coming in there, Wharton, and it's through for 1 point. 1 point to Port Melbourne, their first point, and they're level now with Queensland. Both sides 1-1. In the first quarter, 6.5 minutes gone as we watch Taylor, the fullback, putting the ball back into play for Queensland. Good mark. Taken up here by the Queensland player, looks like John Stackpool, the captain of Queensland, who now plays the ball down towards the centre wing position. And over here the ball is taken by Craig. Craig to the half-forward line, putting Queensland into attack. Wallace again running in with plenty of pace on the slippery surface. Gets possession on the half-forward line. Good play by Wallace. Into the full forward zone. It could bounce across. Either a point, yes, 1 point. Wallace showed lots of pace there, as you could see.
Because he's used to the conditions down here too, Don, being a former Williamstown player in the VFA.
As the ball kicked back into play by the Port Melbourne player Dermott. He gets it down to his teammate here in Ivanov, and he's on Port Melbourne's half-back flank position. Port Melbourne going around the flank position, trying to get the ball towards the centre wing. Knocked away there for Queensland by Rushbrook. Kick back for Port Melbourne towards the centre wing. An opportunity for George Allen. The Queensland here, irrepressible as they keep the ball forward until it's picked up here for Port Melbourne by Bedford. Bedford to Treasure. Gets it across to Kerr. Kerr in the centre, putting Port Melbourne into attack to the full forward zone. No one able to pull the mark in there. Willemsy it is, knocking the ball in front of him. It comes up here to Backwell. Backwell now to the half-forward line. Queensland deep into attack, down towards Craig. The ball knocked away from him. A knock forward here. Now to the half-forward line by Rushbrook again. He's a pretty good player. Port Melbourne playing it pretty tough in defence. Catalini almost had possession. Rushbrook in there again. And the whistle eventually goes, and it'll be a ball up. It's on the Queensland half-forward line. Queensland leading by 1 slender point. 1 goal, 2-1-1. Number 26 is Rushbrook. There's Cook coming in, playing in an unusual role for him in the ruck tonight. Coming through as Pagan. His kick is smothered. Backwell over the top of the ball is infringed against and will get the free kick. Backwell at centre half forward, putting Queensland into attack. A long kick to the full forward zone. Beecroft is there coming up to meet the ball, but there's Wallace again and everything for Queensland, playing the ball in front of him, putting his body in front, and he'll get the benefit of the free kick. It's his third kick, Wallace, and he's a player that goes in pretty hard, and he should be well accommodated against Port Melbourne tonight. Now Wallace would be within kicking distance. He'd be 40 to 45 metres out, not on a very sharp angle. There's the angle there, and there's the kick by Wallace, slightly off the side of his boot, and it's 1 point to Queensland, and the Queensland score now 1-3, 2 points up on Port Melbourne. 1-1, Ted.
Well, Queensland are carrying on from their good performance in Queensland against the VFA, and they're handling these conditions very good, Don.
Well, we're watching the ball being put back into play again by Dermott from the Port Melbourne full-back position. A good kick up towards Tony Hayden, and he, of course, takes the mark. Tony Hayden, right at centre half-back. And Fred Cook, as we mentioned a minute ago, not playing at full forward at the moment, playing in the ruck. There's the handball across there to Kevin Goss to the full forward zone in the back. There's the cry, and the Port Melbourne player Lowe will take the free kick. Lowe is the player playing at fullback, and I'm sure full forward, and I'm sure that move has probably upset the plans of the Queensland side. Not a well-directed pass. And this allows Peter Taylor, the very accomplished fullback for Queensland, to knock the ball away up to the flank position. Players over the top of it. It could be a ball up here, or is it a free kick around the neck? Going Port Melbourne's way, to be taken here by Beckwith. Billy Beckwith. 7 free kicks to 4 in Port Melbourne's favour at the moment. Right in front of the Port Melbourne goal. Opportunity here for Lowe. Left foot shot. Good shot. Not quite good enough. Only 1 point. Port Melbourne 1 goal 2. Queensland 1 goal 3. In the first quarter, 10 minutes gone, and the takeover, Philip Gibbs.
Right, Don, just waiting for the kickoff to take place here from the lake end of the ground. And just let's have a look at the marking so far. There's been 19 marks taken in the game. Queensland have taken 8 of those, and Victoria, or rather Port Melbourne, 11. So Queensland are going pretty well. Here we have the mark taken by George Allen. Allen now on the flank position, goes for the short pass, and here's the opportunity now for Rasmussen to take a long shot for goal. Bedford, I think, has come across. Yes, he's come across from the opposite flank. He was playing on the bowling green flank a moment ago and has just changed over. So Bedford within scoring range. This is his former ground, the South Melbourne ground. Puts the ball on its way. It's not a bad kick, but just a fraction offline and forced through for 1 point again to Port Melbourne. So the score's again level, both sides on 1 goal 3. Incidentally, the NFL approved football being used in tonight's Escort Cup match is the Chesson football, manufactured by J.S. Chesson Proprietary Limited of Perth. Okay, ball comes back up towards centre half back, moving through is Rasmussen. He puts it up and towards the right forward pocket, tapped down to the ground here by Barclay. Barclay gets it away into the middle of the pack. Cook was the player under the pack, and the umpire blows the whistle and has elected to give him a free kick.
Fred Cook had a torrid time in Queensland, Phil, and he's having one here tonight too.
Yes, I'll tell you what, though, he's determined to play well against Queensland. Both sides pretty keen here. Port Melbourne just got home for the benefit of Adelaide people in their club match on Sunday against Paran, got home by 1 point. They're the leading side over here in VFA, as we have Cook putting the ball on its way. It's not a bad kick. The umpire watches it closely. And what's the result? 1 point only. But that puts Port Melbourne 1 point up. They're 10 points to 9. Queensland 1-3. Port Melbourne 1 goal 4. Right kick-off once again. It goes towards the bowling green side of the ground. And the umpire has paid the mark out here to Stuart Barclay of Queensland. Barclay now comes into it, gets his kick in around that bowling green wing once again. Players settling under the ball. No one able to judge the flight of it at all. They were looking straight up into the lights, I reckon, that time. Paul Goss is underneath them, but Backwell gets the ball. He plays it just wide of the centre, and the mark has been taken out here for Port Melbourne by Pagan. Now Pagan of Port Melbourne gets his kick in across towards the centre half forward position. Willemsey comes into it, couldn't hold the ball at all, and immediately we see it cleared by Brown in towards the centre of the ground, and again a Port Melbourne mark, this time taken by Ivanov. Ivanov plays it wide of the centre in towards Pagan. Pagan with a left foot kick to centre half forward. Players settle under it once again. Punched away there, a good bit of play. As we see moving in is Beckwith. Beckwith couldn't control the ball, and immediately we see it taken away for Queensland by Stackpool out towards the boundary line. It will be thrown back into play. Scores are reading here. Port Melbourne 1-4, a total of 10 points. Queensland 1-3, 9 points. Quite impressed with the way both sides are handling slippery conditions here tonight, particularly Queensland, because as you can imagine, for South Australian audiences, we had the opportunity of seeing Queensland beat Victoria only a couple of weeks ago, but their ground is in beautiful condition. I'm not saying this one isn't. It's been done excellently for tonight's big game. Anyway, Queensland into attack now. It goes up to Hay Stratton. Hay Stratton towards centre forward, but Burmont gets it for Port Melbourne. Gets bowled over, but puts it out to the boundary line, and it will be thrown back into play once again.
Too much handball then by Queensland, Phil, because I felt that they were well within kicking range.
Well, this is their style of play, isn't it, Ted? That handball, that quick play on game. And they're a very fast team, but they're back on the pace a bit tonight. Okay, it's Queensland back into attack once again. The ball going up towards the centre forward zone, and Kamali is the player who puts it up to Clark, and Clark is the player to take the mark. So Clark, the full forward, only about 25 metres out, directly in front. He has the chance to put Queensland ahead. Shouldn't miss this one. Guides it on its way right through the middle, and Queensland move on to 2-3. 15 points to Port Melbourne's 1-4, 10 points. And as you can gather, a very parochial crowd here this evening, all Port Melbourne supporters, although we struck a few Queensland supporters around there as we were walking around the ground.
They were the ones who were very well rugged up, Phil. They're feeling the cold.
I tell you what, I've got the long johns on tonight anyway, Ted. Brian Oakley and Bill Hedger, the field umpires.